Hello everybody and welcome back. This video I'm going to share another little piece of Stanley block plane history. This little gem here came to me through a friend and I'm really grateful to have a chance to share it. This is a Stanley block plane number 15 and I believe it's a type 9, which puts it in the time frame of 1890 to 1894. And based on my research, I think this is an earlier model, probably closer to the 1890. And as always in my research, a fair amount of my information comes from John Walter's book. He's got a pretty detailed type study of the Stanley block planes, the 9.5 family, and other resources like Patrick's Blood and Glory website. To put things in perspective, this is a more common Stanley 9.5. This is a type 18 from the Sweetheart era, and this plane is fairly common. It was Stanley's bellwether all-purpose plane. It has the throat adjustment, the lateral adjustment, and the depth adjustment. So the serious woodworker, if they just wanted a plain, basic, functional plane, this was the guy they got. Stanley also made a very simple, very basic plane. This is the number 110. This would be more aimed at the homeowner that didn't want to fork over the money for a guy like this. The topic of this video, this guy is a number 15. The difference between the number 15 and the 9.5 is that the 15 is longer. If I hold these two next to each other, you can see that the 15 here in my right hand is about an inch longer than the 9.5. Other than that, they're, for all intents and purposes, the same plane. And I did a video a while ago on this number 9.5. It's actually a 9 3/4 because it has the tail knob, but this is the Stanley Type 1. And to put it in order, here you have the Type 1. This I believe is a Type 9, and I believe this guy here is a Type 18. So the overall condition of this guy is a bit of a mixed bag. You can see there was a rather obvious repair of the lever cap that had undoubtedly broken, and I would not put that in the category of the best job I've ever seen, but a lot better than I could do because I don't do that kind of work. Each of the four corners has a different profile on it, so I think this is the only one back here that has not chipped. This one over here has a little nick taken out of it. That one has a pretty good bite out of it, and the back corner here, a little chip. However, my best guess is that this was a reasonably well cared for but also well used plane, because this is a replacement iron, and I believe starting with the Type 8s they had the rounded heel on the iron. When they were older they had this more rectangular, angular heel to the iron, which would dig into the palm of your hand. So shortly before this vintage of the Type 8s in the late 1880s they had the rounded iron. The original iron for this plane should have had the J trademark, and here's a close-up of the J trademark. So let's take a minute to talk about lever caps. According to John Walter's type study, this is the 5th generation of the lever cap as it evolved. The first one, of course, is the one very similar to a bench plane. In Type 2, they very quickly went to one that was more this shape. The second iteration, if memory serves, had more details down here, and they made subtle changes to it, and I don't have any to show you, but they were well on their way to get to the lever cap that we've all known and loved. These early ones, the Type 5, if you look at it, you can see it's bent up back here, back to back with a more modern one. So you can see the older one has more of an upswing on it, where the more modern ones basically go straight across. And the reason why this flares up is to give room for the cam lever. The cam lever on these older ones swings from the back. You can see there has to be room for that to swing left to right. Obviously Stanley abandoned that idea just a few years later and went with the lever that was on the top side of the lever cap. I do believe this was undoubtedly japanned, and the brazing process to repair it probably got rid of all that. And what that means, if you view the plane on the side, again compared to a modern one, you can see this lever cap sticks up a little higher. It might be a little more comfortable for your palm, but I suspect it may have made this more prone to breakage. To adjust the throat opening, there's just a knob here that you loosen, and then the throat can be slid back and forth. The eccentric lever, which Stanley made a ton of these, didn't come out until Type 10, just a few years after this one. And this knob is in good shape, looks to be solid brass. And the throat plate here, if I take it out, looks like so. You can see there's some wood shavings in there in very good shape. This particular throat plate, according to the type study, was the third iteration of it. Not very big changes, but mostly the supporting casting changed a little bit as the plane evolved. The lateral adjust lever here, I believe, showed up in type 8A just a few years before this type, and this is the second iteration. There's actually 4 patent dates down there. The dates are 2/8/76, and of course that's 1876, 10/21/84, 1/17/88, and 7/24/88. Okay, let's take a couple minutes to talk quickly about these 4 patents. Here's the first one. It's dated February 8th, 1876. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading the text. I'm just going to give a quick overview. And you can see by these diagrams, figure 2 and figure 3 here, the essence of this patent is a depth adjustment mechanism by using a turning wheel similar to a screw. And this patent is by a man named Joseph Nicht, and he came up apparently with the first idea to patent it about having a screw mechanism in the body of a plane that had a nut on it attached to the screw, and as you dialed the screw clockwise, counterclockwise, the nut would ride on it up and down, and that nut here was attached to a lever. And this lever in the diagram seems to have been attached to a rack and pinion gear mechanism. So as this nut slides up and down, the iron of the plane will plunge deeper into the wood or will be pulled back. And this seems to be the first renditions of the thumb wheel depth adjustment that we all know and love in the Stanley block planes. The second patent is by Justus Trout, and he had many patents while working for Stanley. This one's dated October 21st, 1884, and the essence of this one is simply a lateral adjust mechanism using a lever, and this looks very similar to what was used on the Type 5 bench planes. You can see the outline of the lever here as you rotate it clockwise, counterclockwise. There's a little tab that sits in a slot on the iron that will cause the iron to rotate clockwise, counterclockwise to adjust the skew of the iron as it interfaces with the wood. The third patent, this is also a Justus Trout, and this one is dated January 17th, 1888. You can see by this diagram he came up with the idea of a lever that would fit in the tight confines of a block plane. You also have the depth adjustment wheel that rides up and down on the bolt. So this block plane looks an awful lot like the common Stanley block planes that we all know and love. And in this one, instead of having the wheel on it, it has a little tab like the previous patent had described. And finally, the fourth patent is the disc that goes on the lateral adjust. And here's a diagram again. This is a Justus Trout. The date's July 24th, 1888. And you have the lateral adjust, but instead of a little tab that goes up into the slot of the iron, this has a wheel. So that's what we got for these. That's what those 4 patents are all about. According to the type study, this is the second Excelsior body. And the only other one I have to show you, of course, is on this Type 1, but where this is a 9.5 and this is a 15, it's kind of hard to see because they're different lengths. But I think you can see they are similar, but definitely different shapes. And of course, the Excelsior body eventually gave way to the standard block plane body that we all know and love. The depth adjust wheel is right-hand thread. Didn't go to left-hand threads until 1899 in the Type 12 era. And the symmetric body on the block planes was a Type 13 around 1900. And the type study gives some details that I think are a little beyond the scope of this video, but they claim this is the 5th style of body to have evolved through these block planes. Most of the changes, in my opinion, were relatively minor, mostly changing the ribs in here. And recently, to this block plane, a notch had to be cut back here to make room for the lateral adjust lever mechanisms. As I look at this particular body, you can see evidence of some of the japanning. There's even a little bit of gloss here behind the knob, a little bit on the toe here. I think if I wash this and wax it up, it might actually shine. It's in pretty good shape for a plane this old. I'm a little tickled at how clear these patent numbers are on the lateral adjust lever. This is badly tarnished, but there still has the word Stanley wrapped around here. I think with a little time, elbow grease, and TLC, this will shine up pretty nicely. And the sole actually looks in, again, really good shape for a plane this age. So the iron here has had a little bit of a bite taken out of it because it's been sharpened so many times. It doesn't quite have the length to reach the throat anymore. So somebody took a little bit off back here. To illustrate that, I have another very worn block plane iron. This has the T trademark on it, and you can see if you put that in, the wheel is bottoming out on the top of the slot. In fact, this one might have been enlarged a little bit as well, but that one doesn't really quite make it either. And I have this other Sweetheart era iron, and plainly see quite a difference. So a new iron would sit about like so, with a good, I don't know, 2/3 of a centimeter, 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch of material that could be removed before the iron starts to bottom out. Well, you know it. Appreciate you coming by and checking out what I have to offer. I'm a little tickled once again to be able to bring a little bit of hand plane history to life. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this guy other than probably clean it up. I might take a little time and look around and see if I can find some period appropriate parts for those that have been badly damaged, particularly the lever cap and possibly a new iron. But time will tell how good that's going to be. I don't think I'm going to turn this into a user. Just don't really need it, and I think it's a little bit too close to a piece of history. I'd rather try to get it restored a little bit, something more appropriate to what it looked like in its former glory. So as always, thanks for coming by. Stay safe, take care, and I'll check you out on the next one.